This is Jesse, and welcome to Turning Point Tuesday. Every week, we share stories of people who find themselves at a crossroads in life, when a single decision can change everything. Tonight's story is about an 18-year-old who had no safe place to call home, no stability, and no clear path forward, until he realized that starting over might mean stepping into a world of discipline and structure he never imagined for himself. Take a deep breath and listen closely, because sometimes the turning point in your life doesn't come when you're ready for it. It comes when survival forces you to choose. When I was 18, most of my classmates were celebrating their graduation, throwing parties, taking summer trips, planning for college. Me? I was trying to figure out where I was going to sleep. Living with my dad wasn't an option. The house was chaotic and unsafe, mostly because of my younger brother. He wasn't just moody or rebellious. He claimed to be in a gang, and his anger was like nothing I had ever seen before. Imagine trying to do homework while hearing shouting, things breaking in the next room, or being told to get out because he was in one of his moods. Nights felt unpredictable. Some ended in silence. Others ended with the sound of police sirens pulling up to the house. The worst part, even when help showed up, police, social workers, mental health services, nothing changed. Because of his age, no one could step in with a lasting solution. And so, we lived in constant tension, waiting for the next explosion. Life at home felt like walking across a floor full of broken glass. No matter how careful you were, something was going to cut you. Dinner at the table wasn't a family meal, it was a countdown. One wrong word could spark yelling, or worse. I remember keeping my backpack packed even at night, just in case I had to leave suddenly. Friends at school never knew why I looked so tired, why I flinched when someone raised their voice. Living like that made every day feel like survival training, except no one was giving out medals for making it through. That wasn't the environment I wanted to grow into adulthood in. It wasn't safe, and it definitely wasn't stable. My parents were divorced, and for a while, I thought maybe my mom could help. She tried in her own way, but money was tight, and honestly, so was her emotional strength. I don't hold it against her. She had her own battles to fight, and I respected the fact that she didn't pretend to have more to give than she did. That's the thing about adulthood. Sometimes you realize your parents are just people, trying to survive in their own ways. But it left me on my own. I've always tried to hold myself accountable. I hate relying on others. If anything, I tend to give more than I take, even when I don't have much to spare. But living that way comes with a cost. So I bounced from place to place, renting out rooms when I could, sleeping on couches when I couldn't, working part-time jobs to pay rent, trying to balance school with survival. There were weeks I thought, if I can just make it to Friday, maybe I'll figure something out. And then came one of the lowest points, living in a storage unit with my twin brother. A friend of ours let us use it temporarily. We were grateful. It was better than being on the street. But let's be real, a storage unit isn't a home. It's cold in winter, suffocating in summer. No kitchen, no shower, no privacy. Just four walls and a lock. I remember nights when the concrete floor sucked the warmth out of me. I'd wake up stiff, my back aching, hearing rain ping against the thin roof like drum beats. We kept our few belongings tucked into bags so no one would know we were living there if they opened the door. Every sound outside made us freeze, because being discovered meant being kicked out, and we had nowhere else to go. The strangest part was how quickly the human mind tries to normalize things. My brother and I would joke about our place, pretending the rattling metal door was just a quirky feature, like an old apartment window that wouldn't shut. But deep down, we knew. We were hiding. The air smelled like cardboard and dust. On cold nights, our breath fogged in the beam of a flashlight. On hot days, the heat pressed down so heavy it felt like the walls were shrinking in. We tried to laugh about it, but every laugh had an edge of desperation, because humor was the only thing keeping fear at bay. When the owner's grandmother found out and told us we couldn't stay there anymore, I didn't get angry. I respected her decision. She didn't owe us a place to live, but it meant that in just a month, we'd have nowhere to go. And that realization shook me. At the same time, I was in a relationship. I cared about my girlfriend deeply. I wanted to give her the world. Dinners out, small gifts, stability, comfort. But the reality was, I couldn't even give myself those things. I remember sitting across from her one night, counting the dollars in my pocket, wondering if I could even afford 2 fast food meals. I watched other couples our age posting photos of movie nights, road trips, and birthday surprises. and I felt ashamed that the best I could offer was, maybe next week. Love is powerful, but when you're young and broke, it feels like every flaw is magnified. I wanted to be someone she could lean on, not someone barely scraping by. I remember once she asked me what I wanted to do that weekend. My mind went blank. Most couples my age could suggest a movie, a bowling night, maybe a small road trip. I didn't have the luxury of choice. Every idea cost money I didn't have. So I shrugged and said, whatever you want. What I really meant was, I can't give you anything right now, and I hate myself for it. That moment stuck with me, because love should feel like freedom. But to me it felt like a mirror showing all the ways I was falling short. That's when the thought of the military began to creep into my mind. I had friends who had joined. I'd seen them gain structure, stability, even a sense of belonging. They had food, shelter, steady paychecks, things I couldn't seem to get no matter how hard I worked. And I knew what it meant to be disciplined. I'd spent all 4 years of high school in JROTC. I even made it onto staff. I'd heard that experience could help me start at a higher rank if I enlisted. I wasn't sure exactly how it worked, but it was something. The more I thought about it, the more it felt like the reset button I desperately needed. Of course, I wasn't blind to the risks. The military meant giving up some freedoms, maybe being stationed far from home, maybe being sent into danger. It meant leaving my twin behind to figure things out on his own. It meant distance from my girlfriend and the fear that she might move on without me. But when I weighed it against the alternative, bouncing from couch to couch, working part-time jobs that barely covered food, constantly worrying about where I'd live next month, the military looked less like a punishment and more like salvation. I realized loneliness didn't scare me. I'd already been lonely, even in rooms full of people. What scared me was staying stuck in survival mode forever. That was the turning point. I had to choose, keep drifting through instability, or step into something structured, something that might finally give me a foundation to build a future on. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about my twin, who needed me. It was about my girlfriend, who deserved more than empty promises. And it was about the man I wanted to become. Someone who could stand tall, take responsibility, and stop running from one temporary fix to another. The more I sat with it, the more I realized something. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you need to start over. That doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you've recognized that the life you're living isn't sustainable, and you're willing to walk into the unknown to build something better. For me, the military felt like that unknown. It scared me, sure, but it also gave me hope. And hope is powerful when you've gone without it for too long. I imagined what life might look like a year down the road if I joined, waking up in a real bed, knowing where my next meal was coming from, wearing a uniform that gave me a sense of pride, meeting people who, like me, were trying to climb out of difficult pasts. I thought about traveling, about earning benefits that could one day pay for school, or even help me buy a home. Those weren't dreams anymore. They were goals within reach. The thought scared me, but it also lit a spark I hadn't felt in years. The belief that tomorrow could actually be better than today. Here's the lesson I want you to take from this story. Turning points aren't always flashy. They don't always come with cheering crowds or obvious victories. Sometimes they come when you're sitting in a storage unit, staring at the ceiling, realizing you can't keep living this way. Sometimes the turning point is choosing the hard road, the disciplined road, because it's the only one that leads out of survival and into stability. And maybe your turning point isn't military service. Maybe it's going back to school, moving to a new city, or finally walking away from a toxic environment. Whatever it looks like, it's the courage to take that step that matters. Because when you look back years later, you'll realize that the moment you thought was rock bottom was really the moment you began to rise. This was Turning Point Tuesday, told by me, Jesse. Every story we share is about someone facing a crossroads and finding the courage to step forward. If you've ever had to start over, if you've ever faced that moment where you knew things had to change, share it in the comments. Your story might be the encouragement someone else needs. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to SecretSpool, and join us again tomorrow for another story in one of our weekly series. Until then, take care, and remember, even when life feels uncertain, the next choice you make could be the one that changes everything.